The Wreck-and Dominion fleet glided through the empty blackness of space. 20 warships moved in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming under distant starlight. Admiral Ta walked slowly across the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest. His four-fingered hands clasped behind his back, the hard plates of his exoskeleton clicking softly with each step. "Status report," he demanded. "All systems nominal, Admiral," replied Commander Su, his second-in-command. "We will reach the mining colony in the Proxima system within 3 cycles." Ta nodded. The Proxima system had rich resources that would feed the ever-hungry machines of the Dominion for decades. Their current mission was simple: eliminate the primitive settlers who had claimed the system's third planet and establish a Rakan presence. "Admiral," called out the sensor officer suddenly, "we're detecting an unknown vessel at the edge of the Eridani sector." Tai tilted his head. The Eridani sector wasn't part of their planned route. "Show me," he ordered. The main display activated, showing a small ship drifting near an asteroid field. The vessel was unlike any design in the Dominion database. It had a sleek central hull with 2 extended sections that might be engines or weapon systems. The ship was tiny compared to even the smallest Rakan vessel. "Scan it," ordered Ta. Su studied the incoming data. "Primitive technology, Admiral. Their propulsion system appears to be early-stage fusion. Minimal weapons, no significant shielding. Life forms detected aboard. Unknown species." Tay's mandibles clicked with pleasure. Another primitive race to add to the Dominion's collection of subject species. If they proved useful, they would serve. If not, their world would simply be cleaned of life and used for resources. "Alter course," Ta commanded. "Let's introduce ourselves." The Rakan fleet smoothly changed direction, their massive engines flaring blue against the darkness. The lone ship remained in position, apparently unaware of the approaching danger. As the Dominion fleet drew closer, Commander Su frowned at his display. "Admiral, the vessel is powering up systems. They've detected us." "Hail them," Tai ordered. "Let's see what we're dealing with." The communications officer worked his controls. "Channel open, Admiral." Ta straightened his posture. First contact was always a delicate moment, even when dealing with primitives. "Unknown vessel, this is Admiral Ta of the Rakan Dominion. You have entered territory claimed by the Dominion. Identify yourselves immediately." The screen remained blank for several moments. Then it flickered to life, showing a creature Ta had never seen before. It had no exoskeleton, instead covered in soft-looking pale skin. Its head had dark fur on top, and it wore some kind of uniform with symbols Ta didn't recognize. "This is Captain Ju of the TSS Defiant." The creature responded in perfect galactic standard, surprising Ta. "We are engaged in peaceful exploration. We claim passage rights under Galactic Compact Article 7. Tay's inner eyelids flickered in confusion. The Dominion recognized no Galactic Compact, and certainly no article at 7. This was either a massive misunderstanding or a pitiful bluff. "There is no compact recognized by the Dominion," Tay replied. "Your vessel is now property of the Rakan Dominion. Prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your destruction." The creature, Captain Ju, didn't show fear as Tai expected. Instead, she simply nodded once. "I understand, Admiral. For the record, we offered peaceful passage." The communication cut off. "Arrogant for a primitive," Su commented. "They all are, until they learn better," Tai replied. "Prepare boarding parties. I want that vessel intact if possible. Their translation technology alone might be useful." 3 boarding shuttles launched from the flagship, streaking toward the small vessel. The Defiant remained motionless, its systems running, but making no attempt to flee or fight. "Strange," muttered Su. "They're not even trying to escape." Ta watched as the boarding shuttles locked onto the hull of the alien vessel. Perhaps they understand resistance is pointless. The boarding team leaders reported successful docking. Cutting tools began working through the hull of the Defiant. Ta settled into his command chair to watch the operation. Boarding Team 1 has breached the hull, reported the communications officer. Team 2 and 3 report successful entry points as well. Ta nodded, pleased with the efficiency. Tell them to secure the bridge and engineering sections first. Yes, Admiral. The officer relayed the orders, then frowned. Admiral, Team 1 reports unusual interior design. The corridors are arranged in defensive configurations. Before Ta could respond, alarms began blaring across the boarding shuttles. Admiral, the communications officer called out urgently. Team 1 reports they're trapped. Internal bulkheads have sealed them in separate compartments. Sue leaned forward at his station. Team 2 reports gravity fluctuations. Their magnetic boots are failing. Tai rose from his chair. Team 3. No response from Team 3, Admiral. The tactical display showed the boarding team's life signs. Team 1's signals were scattered throughout the ship, isolated from each other. Team 2's signals showed erratic movement, as if they were floating in zero gravity. Team 3's signals were completely gone. Get them out of there, Tai ordered. Recall all teams immediately. They can't reach the shuttles. Admiral, the ship has locked down all access points. Tai's mandibles clicked in anger. Then destroy the vessel. Fire all weapons. The weapons officer activated targeting systems, but before they could fire, the Defiant's engines flared with unexpected brightness. The small ship accelerated at a rate that should have been impossible for its apparent technology level. Impossible, Sue whispered. Their engines shouldn't be capable of that kind of thrust. The Defiant shot past the Rakan fleet, moving toward a nearby jump point at speeds that suggested technology far beyond what their scans had detected. Pursue them, Ta commanded. Maximum speed. The Rakan vessels turned to follow, but the Defiant was pulling away rapidly. Their small size and surprising engine power gave them an advantage the Dominion ships couldn't match. As the mysterious vessel neared the jump point, Captain Ju's voice came over the communication system one final time. Human vessel leaving combat zone. We will return, Admiral. Next time, perhaps you'll consider diplomatic options first. Then the Defiant vanished into the jump point, leaving behind a stunned Rakan fleet and 3 boarding shuttles filled with dead warriors. Ta stood silent for a long moment. Send a message to High Command, he finally said. We've encountered a new species that calls themselves humans. They possess technology that appears primitive but contains hidden capabilities. Assessment: extremely dangerous. Commander Sue looked up from his display. What should we tell High Command about our boarding teams? Tai's eyes narrowed. Tell them the truth. The humans defeated our elite warriors without firing a single weapon. The Dominion must prepare. This is only the beginning. Captain Ju sat calmly in her command chair as the enemy boarding craft latched onto the Defiant's hull. The bridge crew worked with focused precision, their movements quick but not panicked. 3 contact points confirmed, reported Lieutenant Park from the tactical station. They're cutting through sections 7, 12, and 19. Ju nodded and pressed her palm against the biometric scanner on her chair's armrest. Computer, activate Protocol Hornet's Nest. Authorization. Ju, Captain 9 Delta 5. The ship's systems responded immediately. Protocol Hornet's Nest activated. All crew to secure stations. Throughout the Defiant, emergency lighting switched to a deep red. Non-essential crew members moved quickly to designated safe rooms designed to withstand both vacuum and enemy fire. They weren't numerous. The Defiant operated with just 27 personnel, far fewer than most ships of comparable size. All hands report secure, announced Commander Kim, the ship's executive officer. Good, said Ju. She watched her display as it showed the Rakan cutting tools breaking through the outer hull. Let's welcome our visitors. The first breach occurred in Cargo Bay 3. 6 Rakan soldiers, covered in protective armor and carrying energy weapons, pushed through the opening they'd created. Their movements were confident, practiced. They had clearly done this many times before. The leader signaled his team to spread out. The cargo bay appeared empty, just a standard storage area with containers secured to the deck. The Rakan moved forward cautiously. "Contact in Section 7, reported Park, watching the feed from hidden cameras. "They're following standard sweep formation." Ju nodded. "Initiate Phase 1. The deck beneath the Rakan soldiers suddenly glowed with blue light. Before they could react, the artificial gravity in the cargo bay reversed. All 6 soldiers were violently thrown upward, crashing into the ceiling 12 meters above. In Section 12, a different Rakan team had entered through a maintenance hatch. They found themselves in a circular corridor that looked normal at first glance. As they advanced, hidden panels in the walls slid open, deploying automated defense turrets. The weapons didn't fire immediately. They simply tracked the intruders. "Section 12 team has spotted the turrets," Park reported. "And Section 19?" Ju asked. "Still cutting through. They're being more careful after losing contact with the first teams." On the Rakan flagship, Admiral Tai was growing increasingly concerned. The boarding team in Section 7 had gone completely silent after reporting successful entry. The team in Section 12 had reported defensive systems, but was attempting to disable them. "What is happening over there?" Ta demanded. "How can such a primitive vessel have these defenses?" Commander Su had no answer. Their scans had shown minimal weapon signatures and defensive capabilities. Either their sensors were malfunctioning, or the human ship had technology that could mask its true nature. Back on the Defiant, Ju watched as the Section 12 Rakan team fired on the defense turrets. The energy weapons damaged 2 of them, but the remaining turrets responded by releasing a colorless, odorless gas. "Anesthetic compound deployed in Section 12, reported Dr. Lee from Medical. Non-lethal, but should incapacitate within 30 seconds. The Rakan soldiers quickly realized something was wrong. They reached for breathing apparatus, but the gas worked faster than they anticipated. One by one, they collapsed to the deck. In Section 19, the final boarding team successfully cut through the hull and entered what appeared to be a crew quarters area. They moved forward slowly, suspicious after losing contact with the other teams. "Section 19 team is in the trapped corridor," Park announced. Ju nodded. "Execute Phase 3. The corridor the Rakan soldiers were traveling through suddenly sealed at both ends. The lights went out, plunging them into darkness. When emergency lighting in their suits activated, they saw that the walls of the corridor were now extending inward, the space growing smaller by the second. The team leader frantically tried to cut through the nearest wall with his energy weapon, but the material absorbed and dispersed the energy without damage. These weren't normal walls. They were designed specifically to counter energy weapons. On the Rakan flagship, panic was setting in as the last boarding team's communications became desperate, then silent. "This is impossible." Ta slammed his fist against his command console. "That ship should have fallen to us in minutes." Commander Su studied the sensor readings with confusion. "Admiral, I'm detecting power surges throughout the human vessel. Their engines are activating." Ta looked up at the main display. "Destroy the docking clamps. Don't let them escape." But it was too late. The Defiant's hull suddenly generated a localized energy field that shattered the connections with the Rakan boarding shuttles. The small human vessel pulled away, its engines glowing brighter than should have been possible for a ship of its size. "Pursue them," Tad ordered. "All ships, maximum speed." The Rakan fleet turned to follow, their massive engines flaring blue against the blackness of space. But the Defiant accelerated at a rate that defied their understanding of the human technology level. On the Defiant's bridge, Captain Ju maintained her calm demeanor. "Status of the boarding parties. Section 7 team is contained. The ceiling-mounted restraint fields are holding them in place," Park reported. "Section 12 team is unconscious. Section 19. He hesitated. Section 19 team attempted to detonate explosives rather than be captured. The containment system held, but they didn't survive." Ju nodded solemnly. "Prepare jump calculations. Let's get home." The Defiant streaked toward the nearest jump point, the massive Rakan warships falling further behind with each passing moment. The ship's true engines, hidden within what appeared to be cargo containers during scans, propelled them forward at speeds the Rakan couldn't match. "Admiral," Commander Sue reported, "they're going to reach the jump point before we can get into weapons range." Todd watched helplessly as the human vessel pulled away. Everything about this encounter had defied his expectations. A supposedly primitive ship had defeated his elite boarding teams and was now outrunning his most advanced warships. "How?" he asked, not really expecting an answer. "How is this possible?" Sue studied the sensor data carefully. Their technology appears simple on the surface, but there's complexity beneath. It's almost as if... "As if what?" Todd demanded. "As if they designed their ship specifically to appear less advanced than it is. A deliberate deception." As the Defiant neared the jump point, Ju opened a communication channel to the pursuing fleet. "Admiral Ta, this is Captain Ju. Your boarding parties are alive, except for those who chose death over capture. We will transfer them to a neutral location once we've had a chance to speak with them. Consider this a lesson in proportional response. We did not fire a single shot, yet we defended ourselves effectively. Remember this the next time you encounter a human vessel." The communication cut off as the Defiant reached the jump point and vanished in a flash of light. In the stunned silence that followed on the Rakan flagship, Tai turned to his communications officer. "Send a message to High Command. We've encountered a new species called humans. Their technology appears primitive, but contains hidden capabilities. Initial assessment: potentially dangerous." As the message was sent, Todd couldn't shake the feeling that he had just experienced something unprecedented in Rakan history, a complete and humiliating defeat without the enemy firing a single weapon. And worse, he suspected the humans had been holding back. "Potentially dangerous," he repeated quietly to himself. "May the gods help us if they decide to show us what they're truly capable of." Ambassador Sue of the Makari Confederation stood on the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel Star Whisper. Her large pupil-less eyes blinked slowly as she watched the approaching human ships. The lead vessel was familiar from intelligence reports: the Defiant, which had embarrassed the mighty Rakan Dominion. The other 5 ships matched its design but displayed subtle differences in their hull configurations. "Magnificent," whispered Sue's aide, Ren. 6 ships against the entire Dominion. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," Sue cautioned. "We need to understand these humans before we place our hopes in them." The Makari had suffered greatly under Rakan expansion. 3 of their colony worlds had fallen in the past decade alone. The Confederation Council was desperate for allies, but Sue had learned caution through bitter experience. "They're hailing us," said the communications officer. "On screen," Sue ordered. The view screen activated, showing the human face. Like Captain Ju of the Defiant, this human had the same basic features: 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, hair atop the head. But the coloration was different, the face broader. "Ambassador Sue, I am Chief Diplomat 1 of Earth United Nations. We welcome this opportunity for dialogue between our peoples." Sue performed the traditional greeting gesture of her species, pressing her 3-fingered hands together. "The Makari Confederation welcomes friendship with humanity. Your reputation precedes you." One smiled. "News travels fast in the vacuum of space, it seems. We hope you will visit our homeworld and learn the truth beyond the rumors." 4 hours later, Sue's vessel entered formation with the human ships. The journey to the human homeworld would take 7 days at standard FTL speeds. It gave Sue time to study everything known about these newcomers, which wasn't much. The reports from Rakan sources claimed the humans were primitives who had somehow acquired advanced technology beyond their understanding. But Sue suspected this was wounded Rakan pride speaking. Nothing about the human ships suggested borrowed technology. On the 3rd day of travel, Diplomat 1 invited Sue to visit the Defiant. The Makari ambassador was surprised by the ship's interior. Unlike most vessels, which emphasized efficiency and utility, the Defiant contained numerous defensive features disguised as architectural elements. Every corridor could become a trap, every junction a choke point. "Your ship is designed for war," Sue observed during a meal with Captain Ju. Ju nodded matter-of-factly. "All our ships are. Even our science vessels and colony ships can defend themselves when necessary." "You expect to be attacked often?" asked Sue. "We expect everything," replied Ju. "It's how we've survived." When they finally reached Earth, Sue was shocked by what she saw. A single blue-green planet orbiting an ordinary yellow star. Scans showed approximately 10 billion humans living on the world, with small colonies on nearby planets and moons. Their space infrastructure was minimal compared to most spacefaring races. "This is all?" Sue asked in disbelief. "Your entire civilization?" Diplomat 1 nodded. "We're relatively new to the galactic community. We achieved faster-than-light travel only 15 years ago." This was impossible. No species could go from planetary flight to defeating the Rakan Dominion in 15 years. Yet here they were. During her 2-week stay on Earth, Sue was introduced to human leaders, shown their industries, and allowed to observe their military installations. She noticed the humans were careful about what they revealed, but what they did show was both impressive and concerning. In a meeting with Defense Minister Lee, Sue finally asked the question that had been bothering her. "Minister, forgive my directness, but how could your people possibly stand against the full might of the Rakan Dominion? They control hundreds of star systems, their fleet numbers in the thousands." Lee smiled politely. "Ambassador, would you like to see something interesting?" She led Sue to a museum of military history. Inside were displays showing the evolution of human weapons and tactics over thousands of years. "This is our advantage," Lee explained, gesturing to the exhibits. "While other species were learning to cooperate and expand into space, we were perfecting the art of war against ourselves. Every weapon, every strategy, every defense system has been tested and refined through conflict with equally intelligent opponents, other humans." Sue moved slowly through the displays, seeing the progression from simple spears to nuclear weapons, from ancient battle formations to modern electronic warfare. "But the Rakan have superior numbers and resources," Sue argued. "Yes," Lee agreed. "And if they commit those resources against us, we will respond proportionally." "What does that mean?" Lee's expression grew serious. "It means we will do whatever is necessary to defend ourselves. We prefer peace, Ambassador, but we are very, very good at war." When Sue returned to the Confederation, she delivered her report to the Council. The chamber was silent as she described what she had learned. "The humans occupy only one star system," she told them. "Their fleet is tiny by our standards, yet they speak as equals, and their confidence is absolute." Council leader Gan leaned forward. "What about their military capabilities? Could they truly help us against the Dominion?" When questioned directly, they spoke vaguely of proportional response and escalation protocols. When I pressed about how they would defend against a full Dominion assault, their diplomat simply smiled and said, "We hope it doesn't come to that." "That tells us nothing," complained one council member. "It tells us everything," Sue countered. "I believe the humans are dangerous, perhaps more dangerous than the Rakan. But they value peace. They will trade with us. They will help defend our worlds if asked, but they will not fight our wars for us." The Council voted that day to establish formal diplomatic ties with humanity. The human ambassador arrived 3 weeks later, bringing gifts and technology exchange proposals. Meanwhile, in the Rakan capital, Admiral Ta stood before the High Command, arguing passionately. "These humans must be dealt with immediately," he insisted. "They humiliated our forces. They've established ties with the Mikari. If we don't respond, other systems will see it as weakness." Grand Admiral Jin, head of the High Command, studied the reports. "One system, Admiral. They have one system and a handful of ships. Appearances are deceiving," Ta warned. "I encountered them. I saw what their small ship did to our boarding teams. We cannot allow this challenge to stand." After hours of debate, the High Command reached a decision. A battle fleet would be assembled. 30 warships, the largest force deployed in a decade. Their mission: assess and, if necessary, eliminate the human threat before it could grow. As the Reckon prepared for war, humanity continued its diplomatic outreach. The Makari were just the first. Soon, representatives from a dozen species visited Earth, each returning with the same troubling impression. These humans were few in number, but displayed the calm confidence of a species that had never known true defeat. And somewhere in deep space, Captain Ju and the Defiant continued their patrols, waiting for the storm they all knew was coming. Admiral Ta stood proudly on the command deck of the Eternal Conquest, his flagship leading the largest battle fleet assembled by the Rakan Dominion in a decade. 30 warships moved in perfect formation through hyperspace, their weapon systems fully charged and ready. Each ship carried enough firepower to level a city. Together, they could reduce an entire planet to ash. 3 minutes until we exit hyperspace, announced Commander Su from the navigation station. Ta nodded, his mandibles clicking softly with anticipation. After weeks of preparation, the moment had arrived. The humans would learn the price of defying the Dominion. "All ships report ready for combat, Admiral," said the communications officer. "Excellent." Ta turned to address the bridge crew. "Today we face an upstart species that has yet to learn its place in the galaxy. They occupy a single system with a handful of ships, yet they dare to challenge us. We will teach them respect." The crew responded with the traditional Rakan battle salute, striking their chest plates with closed fists. 30 seconds to exit, Su announced. Tai took his position in the command chair. Upon arrival, all ships are to target Earth's major population centers. I want their defenses overwhelmed in the first salvo. "Yes, Admiral." The hyperspace tunnel collapsed around them as 30 Reckon warships emerged simultaneously into normal space. Earth hung before them, a blue-green jewel against the blackness. Scans showed the planet's orbital infrastructure was minimal compared to established spacefaring civilizations. A few space stations, some shipyards, a scattering of defensive satellites. "Target acquired," reported the weapons officer. "Bombardment solutions calculated." Tai studied the tactical display. Their intelligence had identified the humans' major cities and military installations. The first strike would target these locations, breaking their will to resist. "Commence planetary bombardment," he ordered. "Show these humans the price of defiance." 30 warships fired simultaneously, launching hundreds of energy projectiles toward Earth. Each blast carried enough power to destroy several square kilometers. The salvo would devastate the planet's surface, killing millions in seconds. But the projectiles never reached their targets. Across Earth's orbit, previously undetected platforms suddenly activated. They were small, stealthy installations that had been invisible to Rakan sensors until they powered up. Beams of concentrated energy lashed out, intercepting the Dominion weapons. "Admiral," the sensor officer called out in alarm. "Unknown defensive platforms are neutralizing our attack." Tai leaned forward in his chair. "Impossible. Intensify bombardment. Overwhelm their defenses." The Rakan fleet fired again, doubling the number of projectiles. Again, the orbital platforms intercepted them, energy beams flashing across space in a brilliant display of defensive firepower. Then, from Earth's surface, thousands of small objects launched simultaneously. They rose through the atmosphere and accelerated toward the Rakan fleet. "Admiral," the sensor officer reported with growing concern, "the humans are deploying kinetic weapons, simple projectiles accelerated to relativistic speeds." Ta dismissed the concern with a wave of his hand. "Primitive technology. Our shields will disperse them." Commander Su wasn't so confident. "Admiral, these projectiles are moving at nearly 15% of light speed. Their mass-velocity ratio suggests." He never finished the sentence. The first wave of kinetic projectiles slammed into the Rakan fleet like a cosmic hammer. The shields, designed primarily to counter energy weapons, proved almost useless against solid objects moving at such tremendous speeds. The destroyer's relentless virtue simply disappeared, transformed instantly into an expanding cloud of superheated plasma as a tungsten rod passed through its core. The cruiser's dominant will and imperial justice suffered similar fates, their shields failing catastrophically against the kinetic impacts. 3 ships destroyed. Sue shouted over the sudden chaos on the bridge. 5 more reporting critical damage. Alarms blared throughout the Eternal Conquest as the ship rocked violently. Several projectiles had struck glancing blows, weakening the shields to dangerous levels. Evasive maneuvers. Tai ordered. All ships spread formation and continue bombardment. The remaining Rakan vessels attempted to scatter, but the human kinetic weapons adjusted course to follow them. Unlike energy weapons, these projectiles carry their own guidance systems, altering trajectory to track their targets. Second wave incoming, warned the sensor officer. Before Tai could respond, a communication broke through on all Rakan frequencies. Rakan Fleet, this is General Han of Earth Defense Command. The human's voice was calm, almost conversational. The forces you've encountered represent less than 5% of our defensive capabilities. Withdraw now, or we will be forced to demonstrate the next level of our response. Ta gripped the arms of his command chair as another violent impact rocked the ship. Lies. They're bluffing. Admiral, Sue said quietly, we've lost 7 ships already. Another 5 are crippled. We haven't even breached their outer defenses. On the tactical display, Ta could see the human orbital platforms repositioning. From the planet's surface, a new wave of launches was detected, larger objects this time, moving more slowly but clearly headed for the Rakan fleet. What are those? Ta demanded. The sensor officer worked frantically at his station. Unknown design. They appear to be missiles of some kind. Nuclear yields detected. Tay's inner eyelids flickered rapidly as he processed this information. Energy weapons could be stopped by shields. Even the kinetic projectiles might eventually be countered with proper defensive measures. But nuclear detonations in close proximity to his ships would be devastating. Admiral, Sue said urgently, we must withdraw. We cannot sustain these losses. Pride warred with survival instinct as Tai considered his options. The humans had surprised them with defenses far beyond what intelligence had reported. His mighty fleet was being systematically destroyed by a species that had only recently achieved space travel. Another Rakan ship exploded as kinetic projectiles found their mark. The nuclear missiles were halfway to the fleet now, and Todd could see no way to stop them all. All ships, he ordered, his voice tight with suppressed rage. Prepare for emergency hyperspace jump. Retreat to Rally Point Sigma. Commander Sue quickly relayed the orders. The surviving Rakan vessels began aligning for hyperspace, their engines straining to generate the necessary power while under constant attack. As the Eternal Conquest prepared to flee, Tay received one final communication from Earth. Admiral Ta, said General Han, somehow knowing exactly who commanded the Rakan fleet, we will allow your withdrawal. But understand this, any future aggression against Earth or our allies will be met with proportional force. Today, we showed restraint. Ta wanted to respond with defiance, but another explosion rocked his ship as a nearby cruiser was hit. Get us out of here, he ordered instead. The surviving Rakan ships vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind the wreckage of nearly a third of their once proud fleet. As his ship accelerated away from Earth, Ta stood at the viewport, mandibles clicking in agitation. How? He asked no one in particular. How could they defeat us so easily? Commander Sue approached cautiously. Admiral, our initial assessment was drastically wrong. The humans may occupy only one system, but their military technology is focused on defensive capability. They've clearly spent centuries perfecting the art of warfare. Ta nodded slowly. Send a message to High Command. The humans are not to be underestimated. Their defenses. He paused, struggling to find the right words. Their defenses suggest a species that has prepared for war on a scale we've never encountered. For the first time in his long career, Admiral Ta had ordered a retreat. As the hyperspace tunnel enveloped his ship, he wondered what other secrets the humans might be hiding, and what proportional force might truly mean to a species that had just defeated the mightiest fleet in the quadrant without apparent effort. In the vast expanse of space, humanity's reputation transformed dramatically within a single year. The Rakan Dominion, a powerful alien civilization, had attempted to conquer Earth twice and failed spectacularly. Defeated and humbled, they ultimately sued for peace. Other galactic civilizations watched in astonishment. The humans, who occupied just one small star system with basic faster-than-light technology, had somehow repelled advanced alien invaders. Species across the galaxy began seeking alliances with these mysterious Earthlings. The secret behind humanity's incredible defense was both simple and chilling. Humans had spent thousands of years fighting each other. Every weapon, every strategy, every technological advancement had been brutally tested in countless conflicts on their home planet. While other species developed space travel and then military technology, humans had perfected warfare first and simply adapted it to space combat. During the first Galactic Council meeting, the human representative delivered a message that would echo across star systems. Standing calm and resolute, they explained that humanity did not seek conquest or domination. Instead, they would protect the innocent and respond with overwhelming force to any threat against Earth. When you see a human vessel in your combat zone, the representative warned, reconsider your choices. The message was clear and terrifying. Dozens of alien species began to understand that humanity was not just another civilization. They were a force to be respected and feared. A new phrase entered galactic communication: human vessel detected, a warning that meant the rules of war had fundamentally changed. The galaxy watched and waited, knowing that humanity had arrived as a powerful, principled guardian of peace.